right, everyone. Welcome to Pipeline Profits. This is the podcast that is obsessed with everything sales and marketing related to the real estate industry and beyond. I am your host, Ryan Wykes, with my co-host, Emma Podcast. And this week we have a banger guest who Emma will introduce to you, but we're super excited to have with us.
I am so excited to be able to introduce this person. I can't believe this guy's on our podcast today. I feel like we have got so blessed to get to know him over the past couple months. It's like he, I don't know, magnetically came into our lives and is like the perfect guy to be having this conversation with today. What our guest has been able to accomplish at such a young age is incredibly inspiring. When I give you guys an update on what this guy's already been able to accomplish, and then I show you how young he is, you probably won't even believe it. So he founded a company that many Canadians will know, which is called True Local. And he had an extremely successful exit. He actually did a pitch on Dragon's Den. We definitely need to get into that today. He is also a student and an enthusiast of AI, and he's on a mission to help real estate agents be able to create more content and actually post it, you guys. Not just create it and keep it on your phones. Actually post the content. So we're going to get into that today because he has an amazing tool that I want to talk to him about today for those of you guys that are listening to make sure that you are actually creating content for 2024. He also is on a mission to become a professional race car driver, and he runs marathons. So I don't know how much cooler a person can get, but we are absolutely honored to have the one and only Marc Lafleur on the podcast today. Welcome, Marc.
What's up, guys?
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for coming, Marc. Thank you for coming.
Yo, I'm happy to be here. I think, Emma, you nailed it. I'm a huge believer in kind of like the laws of attraction. So I think this relationship and being you guys for the past month and a half it feels like it's been a lifetime, but it hasn't really been that long. Has been essentially fate.
No, totally. I mean, I was like, when I was thinking about all of the things that you've accomplished or the things that you're on a mission to do, I'm like, I think we might have to do like a 5-hour marathon podcast with you because I feel like there's so much to cover.
Don't tempt me. I'm a talker.
I want to start with I want to start with True Local because I feel like was it the development of who you became as a person through True Local that got you into doing all of these additional things like the marathon running and whatnot? Like I want to learn a little bit more about how you got to who you are today through the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I like to think that, at any given time, you are pretty much just like a kind of like a crock pot of all of your life experiences, along with, your personality. And I think a big part of it is people always try to ask, why are you the way you are? And if you look at it where it's like you've got this giant crock pot and you're kind of building this stew or whatever, and all of your life experiences, the good, the bad, are kind of like the ingredients going into that crock pot. Everybody's going to have these different ingredients in different proportions. And then there's you, the individual who is stirring this pot. So how you interact with these ingredients, how you interact with these different things that have happened. And if you're increasing the speed or decreasing the speed, pouring some out, and as you continue to go through life, you're adding more in at all times. So it's this kind of like changing this like ever evolving thing of who you are. And I really believe in that. And I think that, there's this idea that people don't really change. Like at the end of the day, you are who you are, but you have to become a different person and develop different skill sets to deal with the situations that you're in. So for example, in high school, I'm still Marc Lafleur, but I was a very different person who cared about very different things and had to act a very different way to be in my environment. Similarly, when I went to university, same person deep down, but I had to develop very different skill sets and, do a lot of different things to, do the university life. And then similarly, when entrepreneurship came around, it's the same as everything else. The environment forces you to do certain things if you want to be successful in that environment. So I think that's where I'm at now. It's once again, just like the, chapter 33 of me stirring that crock pot. And every day that goes by, there's some new ingredient going in or an ingredient coming out. Who knows? But that's really where a lot of it's coming from. I think the racing and the car racing, so the race car driving and the running, True Local was the hardest, most intense thing we've ever had to do in our lives, at least for me. And it required like 110% of yourself. And what I noticed is that it was interesting to give 110% of yourself to something. Like giving 110% of yourself to one single thing is kind of like, it's kind of beautiful in a certain way, but it's also toxic as hell. Like it's also very difficult and there's not much pleasure in it. So what I realized coming out of that pressure is completely gone. Like that responsibility was completely gone, but I had all of this sort of, I had so many reps of just going all out on something every single day. Every single day it was like a fight for survival. Every single day it was, we're running out of money. Our ads aren't doing what they need to be doing. Our influencers aren't doing what they need to be doing. Our products are going up in pricing. Competitors are popping up. We lost this funding, whatever. Every day was like, hey, I got to apply 100% of myself to deal with this task. And then all that got taken away. And what I found was that I think that driving race cars and running has been an outlet to be like, okay, I can now give some of myself at 110% to these things that I actually enjoy on the side. So that's kind of a part of it and lots to drill down on there. But yeah.
Do you think that coming out of True Local, you saw that before going into your next venture, you needed a little more balance in your life? And so while you had that time, you tried to develop some other aspects and other interests in your life so that as you moved into that next entrepreneurial venture, you had some more balance?
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is that people always talk about the journey versus the destination. And people are always talking about how, it's not just about the destination. You have to enjoy the journey. And I've heard that since I was a kid and I never lived it. I understand it completely. I totally get why, you really shouldn't just work for the sake of a milestone or a certain outcome. You should enjoy the journey along the way. I've just never been able to apply that. And so I've always been a destination man. Now, when I look back on it, that has served me incredibly well. I don't think if I was a journeyman, I would have been able to do what we did with True Local because I would have been looking for happiness every single day. I would have been looking for fulfillment every single day rather than looking at it as everything that has to happen between the moment that I start and the moment I finish is just something I have to get through to accomplish this goal. And no matter what sacrifice I have to do within that time frame, it's worthwhile because my priority is the destination. That mindset, I think, serves founders very well to kind of have that. However, when the company sold, I was 30. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, I did that thing. Now I don't have to do the next thing the same way, right? Like the business that you run is a product of your resources, your network, your experience, it's all those things. And when you start for the first time, you've got none of that. So you got to do things the hard way. So when I came out the other side, I looked at it and was like, okay, that ability to focus only on the destination served me really well. But I do now want to do something else. I want to build another company, but I don't want to look at it from, okay, let me just exist up until we reach that next milestone. I don't want to be just a destination man again. And I don't think I have to do that. So I started kind of going down this journey of like, what do I want to do with my life that will actually allow me to enjoy the journey? It's not just about the destination. I actually am more about the journey now. So it was never, once again, like I said before, it's never that I didn't believe in that. It's just at the time I wasn't capable of applying it. So now what I found is that's where, first of all, the team that we've been looking to put together plays a huge role in that and enjoying what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. But in addition, it's that going back to this idea of giving 110% of yourself, I can give 80% of myself to the business and be much more effective than I was giving 110% of myself to True Local before, which means I can give 10% and 10% of my bandwidth to these other things that actually make me happy. And when I say give 10% and 10%, that doesn't mean I do it at a level of 10%. I'm giving 110% to those things, but they're just subordinate to other priorities that I have. So that's where racing and where running has come in. And racing and running are the first time I've actually experienced enjoying the journey. When I do these races, I can't stress it enough. Like when I'm doing this running, I have a milestone. Like I would love to qualify for Boston next year. I want to run ultras. I want to kind of see how far I can push it. But honestly, I really don't give a shit about the races. I love the lifestyle. I love the training. I love waking up early. I love doing the running. I played football in university. I did CrossFit. I did boxing for a little while. I've always been fairly fit, and I've always kind of been pretty in tune with my body. But in the past, 14 to 20-ish weeks of taking running seriously, it has opened up just an entire new level of respect and understanding of how all of these things need to come together to be a high level runner. Like you're just so injury prone. You're beating your body up so much. You're stacking up so much mileage. Your energy levels have such a huge role that if you don't have your nutrition dialed in, you just can't survive the training. If you don't understand how one little imbalance in your body over the course of 20,000 steps in a run will absolutely go from like, that feels weird to, oh shit, I can't run for 3 months. If you don't understand that and why it's happening, you just won't survive as a runner. So it's kind of been this, like, I love that part of it. I love the tinkering side of it. And of course, if you saw the spreadsheets that I have and the research that I've done, you would kind of see how some of the things that I learned at True Local have translated over to running. But the running and the racing have definitely given me more of that balance where I can enjoy the journey of my life a little bit more rather than just focusing on the destination. So in business, to me, it's mostly destination focused, but now I have this thing where I can enjoy the journey, not just the destination as well.
Do you feel like because you were so destination focused and you had the opportunity to kind of like get that checked off the list, that it kind of opened up space for you to have a different approach or a different vision now that like certain things in your life are taken care of? You're like, okay, cool. I reached that milestone. I've taken care of myself financially, and now I can focus on the actual journey and the things that I enjoy because I've accomplished that destination type item.
100%. I always get so frustrated when I hear people say, don't focus on the money. Money's not everything. And you can't learn that and believe it until you've made money. Like, don't go tell somebody who's struggling to pay rent that it's not about the money, because you obviously have not been there if you're telling people that. If you don't have money, everything is about money. Okay. I think Kanye said it well, right? Having money isn't everything, but not having it is. So I'm a huge believer in, if you want to understand what life is all about and you want to think about things more than just from a money perspective, go make a shit ton of money. And then you'll very quickly realize that, okay, great, I now have this, all of my baser needs are met. And yeah, money does absolutely buy happiness, okay? But it doesn't buy fulfillment and purpose, right? Happiness, to me, I don't know why people chase happiness. That's not the metric in life that you want. Happiness is nice, but fulfillment and purpose, in my opinion, is much more important. So what you'll realize is, okay, you've got the money and it's great, and now you can do whatever, but there's this crazy other journey of life that you'll start to be able to experience when you no longer have to worry about your money. So that was absolutely something that happened for me. It was like, okay, now I don't have to do anything. But the next thing that I started dealing with, like my next journey, my kind of like life lesson, the next thing I'm kind of going through is the idea of, what do you do when you can do anything? And looking at that as more of a crisis than a benefit. And once again, massively appreciative, in no way, shape, or form complaining about it. But I do love to take time to understand why I feel the way I feel and why I think the way I think. And something that, pops up is like, someone like me who I really get, value and fulfillment out of giving everything that I have towards something. Like, I like it. I like to see what I could accomplish if I go all in. It starts to become really weird when you're like, well, I could go all in on this, and I could go all in on that, and I could go all in over here, and I could go all in over there, and go all in on anything. What is the thing I'm going to go all in on? When we look at founders, and I don't think people realize this enough, but the idea when you're starting off and you have a job or you're just not financially set and you got to take a risk, your cards are actually limited. Like, you don't really get to start a business in any industry you want. Usually you have like 4 or 5 real opportunities in front of you, whether that's a business model, whether it's an industry, whether it's something you have a foothold in, but you don't actually have the ability to start a company in anything you want. You've kind of got this like area that you might have a chance of having better success. And then really you got to play the cards you're dealt and make that work. Like, look, I literally sold meat online. Like, do you think that that was the thing that I was like, oh my God, this is what I got to do? Absolutely not. I was doing meat door to door for a company, and I realized if I wanted to start a business, this is where I had the best chance of success. So it's actually, the decision's been made for you. That's why if you don't have the freedom or the money, you don't get to, you'll never experience this issue of, what do I do when I can do anything? And for people that are listening being like, yo, you can't actually be saying that right now. Like, that sounds like a blessing. It is. Except for the fact that you realize if you are going to give yourself to something, what happens when you choose the wrong thing? You go down the road for 2 to 3 years and realize that you gave all of yourself to something that either did not bring you what you wanted it to or made you miserable. Because I think a lot of people deal with that. So imagine the idea of being able to do anything you want, anything, but then having the wrong compass. So like, you're chasing what other people think you should be doing or what you've been taught you should go after. So now look at that dangerous cocktail in the crock pot again. This idea of I can do anything I want. I'm going to choose the wrong thing because my compass is messed up. So it's like this really interesting sort of like, whoa, like never thought about it that way. And I think that the thing that, by the way, the thing that I came to the conclusion of was back this idea that when the company sold, I started saying yes to everything and anything. Because of course, there aren't that many people in Canada who sell a company in that 20 million range, right? Like it's a fairly small group of people. So there was opportunities thrown my way left, right, and center, whether it be get involved with this organization, invest in this company, the book, all these different things that popped up. And I was saying yes to all of them. And I realized very quickly I was doing all of them kind of half-ass. I like to think that we were still successful in all of these things, but I could do better. And I wasn't getting this sense of like pride in what I was doing because I wasn't applying myself 100%. And that came to a major headway when I was looking around, just feeling like I felt like less fulfilled than I did during the True Local days. And I was like, this is like weird and interesting. And because at True Local, we had nothing, but we had a serious purpose. Like we existed for a reason. So this idea of I was saying yes to everything for the sake of saying yes to everything really is what led me to running. So I was doing racing and we had an amazing breakout rookie year and, fell in love with it and I'm deeply passionate about it. And what ended up happening though was I kind of started looking, and the racing season was over. I started looking around and saying, you know what, we're finding a lot of success, but honestly, I think we're applying ourselves like 70 to 75% max on most things. And I looked at it from a working out perspective. And what I noticed was that, so I've always worked out twice a day. And that's not to sound, like, oh, like I have this like crazy discipline or anything like that. It's actually just part of my life. Like I really at True Local, one of the ways I coped with all the stress was working out in the mornings. I had to. If I didn't work out in the mornings, I actually couldn't function. So it was a huge priority in my life. And then when the company sold, I just had more time. So I just started splitting it where I do cardio in the mornings and I would go to the gym at night in the evenings. And I was doing it. But what was happening is I was dogging every single workout. I wasn't training at all. I would just go through the motions, do some cardio in the evening, go to the gym for an hour, be on my phone half the time. And once again, I think that's good. It's a healthy lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that, but it was such a waste. And it just kind of made me realize, I'm like, why am I doing this if I'm not going to do it at 100%? I think when it comes to physical fitness, most people struggle with the time and dedicating that commitment. That's the one thing that is not even a question for me. It's part of my lifestyle. So me going to these workouts and not applying myself 100% is a complete waste. It's just such and I feel like that was giving me the sense of like, well, what's the point of even doing it if I'm not going to apply myself 100%? So where I'm going with this is that this idea of like, what do you do when you can do anything? And going down this rabbit hole of saying yes to everything, it became very clear. The answer to me was only do things that I'm going to actually give 100% of myself to. And that narrowed the gap from all the things that I could do to, okay, yeah, but what am I going to do at 100%? And immediately started applying that to the different areas of my life. So with business, what was going on for the next business, and with running, same thing. I've got these workouts. I'm not doing the workouts unless I'm going to do them at 100% anymore. So of course, now like those workouts became training sessions. And then with the running, it's just like this once again, all in the crock pot and kind of like these life lessons I got learned over time. So to answer the initial question, yeah, I definitely think that having the money taken care of allows you to open up different aspects of yourself. You can kind of look into the different corners of your mind and start understanding, why am I the way I am? And you things that you don't have the luxury of thinking about when you're living paycheck to paycheck. So that's a big opening.
So you obviously from True Local, you went through a successful exit, multiple seven figures. As you mentioned, tons of opportunities coming your way. You were saying yes to everything. You've now realized you've got to go 100%. That's just your mindset and who you are. You've got to be all in on something. So tell us a bit about business. We talked about the running, a little bit about the car racing. You're 110% on those, but it's only taking up 10% of your life and 10% of your life. What is the business that you're now going 110% on for that other 80% of your life that you're super focused on right now? And why does it excite you so much?
Yeah, well, I started essentially working backwards from like, what do I want now? Like what really matters to me? And number one, when you look at business, I think that first time founders are always going to be thinking short term. And that's not a bad thing or a knock at all. I think they should think short term. You got to get that money thing taken care of. So when you are a founder, a reasonable chunk of time is like 5 years. When you start thinking past 5 years, it's hard to, kind of wrap your head around that. And anything before 5 years, I think you're just naive. Like realistically, it's going to be around that 5-year mark before you start to get traction. Year one, you're spending most of your time just trying to reconcile why you ever quit your job to start a company. And you're just pretty much every day trying not to quit. Year two, you start to figure out, okay, I'm in this, I can't turn back. And you're now learning how to run this business that you've created. Year three, you start to kind of get this traction. You're kind of more in that product market fit phase. You actually know what's going on. In year 4 and 5, you start to scale it. And then maybe you can kind of get an acquisition. Now that's, a generalization. Of course, there's outliers. For me, on the second time around, I wanted to look at doing something for a longer period of time where the goal wasn't just to sell a company. I wanted to do something that I could put my name on, something that I was going to have for a long period of time, and something that actually makes money. Because I think that when I came into business in 2015, it was the venture model, right? We didn't take any VC funding, but it was growth at all cost, burn cash to grow as fast as you can so that when you do become profitable, you're profitable at a high level. I don't want to necessarily do that this time around, currently at least. And B, it's just not the environment for it. It's we're going into 2024. We're obviously in an economic crisis. You got to build sustainable businesses. And luckily we saw that at the tail end of 2020 already. So we kind of already have some experience there. So long story short, I wanted to do something for a minimum of 10 years. So the idea, and I sat down with my wife, and, the big conclusion that we had was that what I said before, if I want to think long-term, the number one critical thing is it cannot be about the destination, because I'm not about to just zap forward 10 years in my life and be like, oh, did I reach it or not? And have everything between that time be useless. At 25 to 30, perfect time to do that. 30 to 40, not so much. So if I'm going to do it for 10 years, it's got to fit with the lifestyle. It's got to fit with, enjoying what I'm doing along the way. Now, to be clear, I am not out here preaching work-life balance. If you want to start a company, you absolutely need to understand that work-life balance is going to go out the window. As a second-time founder, you can double tap a little bit more on that. However, it doesn't matter. A startup is a startup, and it's going to take all of your effort. So it was just more about something where I can wake up, and instead of having to have my motivation come from the dollar sign at the end of the destination, my motivation can come from having a sense of purpose and enjoyment on what I'm doing every day. So that was the difference when I'm talking about it like that. And when I started thinking about that, it's like, well, what's going to do that? Is it a problem? Is it a specific problem? Is it a specific solution? Is it a specific technology? And working backwards from there, it realized it was actually the people. The best thing that ever happened at TrueLocal was the people across the board. The team. I always say that the metric I'm most proud of at TrueLocal was the fact that when the company sold, our first 10 employees were still there, which is not the norm in the industry. So the team was just something that we went to war together, and I built relationships with individuals there that you just can't have unless you've done that. Number two, the customers. Like, we had so many crises at TrueLocal that if it was a different business, customers would have just bailed and left us. And because honestly, we just wore our hearts on our sleeves, and we brought our customers along the journey, and they did such a good job of putting us on their shoulders, honest to God, and keeping us afloat during some of these times. Like, we're blessed to have the customers, and we're friends with a lot of them now too, and including, some of the various partnerships we made along the way. So that was amazing. And then the investors at TrueLocal, they were all angels and have become some of my closest friends. And so looking back on it, the best thing about TrueLocal was the people. And knowing that, it was very clear to me that I wanted the people to be at the core of what I was going to do for the next 10 years. So for me, the thing that I cared about the most was I want to be in an inspiring environment. I love waking up every day and being in an environment that is motivating. I do it with my social media content. If you go through my social media, it's just like nonstop business ideas, tricks, tips, inspiring figures, people that are crushing it, everything from sports to business. I like being in an environment, in motivating environments. So I need to be around people that inspire me. And I also get motivation from inspiring people. So the team's got to be a big part of it. So I realized, okay, it's not so much about the problem, it's about the team and having a long-term vision. Well, I think really where the world is going right now, like you look at it over the past 3 years, we've had these two huge technological, advancements that have come that have completely changed the world. In a lot of different ways. You've got blockchain and distributed ledgers. And of course, if it was 2019 through till, about a year and a half ago, it's all anybody talked about. It was the AI of 2020. Everybody changed. Like, this is going to change the world. This is going to change everything. And I spent a lot of time in that space. And I believe in it deeply. Like, I believe in the technology quite a bit. But it changed the world, and it made some business models obsolete. And it also crippled and bankrupted a lot of people who went all in on these tools and business models that weren't fully fleshed out yet. And you're watching the exact same thing happen with AI. So I think that it's not going to end. I think that both these technologies are here forever. And I think more are going to come. And what that made me realize was that bull rushing into a business model right now in the way that the world is, I think is actually a disadvantage. I think that what ends up happening with these hype cycles, blockchain and AI is the same thing. New technology comes out and people start to see it as a money grab. So what ends up happening is that you've got all of these individuals who are not incentivized to create value. They're incentivized to make money, that bull rush the market, building with this technology, and they're building shit products. And what ends up happening is then it builds to this peak of a hype cycle, and people start using these products, and they're like, this technology is shit. It's like, no, technology is great. The business model and the way it's being applied is shit. So you get this kind of trough of like, oh, now it's overhyped and this and that. So I love that because I think it gives an opportunity to build in that space. It's amazing to get your hands on, you know what I mean? Like, that's the most important thing, is to be hands on and try to get in there and build with this technology. So I like these hype cycles as a way to learn the technology, try to cut through the noise of the hype business models and see which business models are going to sustain the test of time. But you can't do that unless you're in it and looking forward ahead. So all of this to say, the idea that I wanted to do something for about 10 years, the fact that I wanted it to be centered around the people, and the fact that I think it's a bit dangerous right now to just bull rush into a business model when the technology hasn't settled yet. It was pretty obvious that I really wanted to build a lab. I wanted to put amazing people together that had very unique skill sets and deep skill sets in these technologies that would make it so we could work on a lot of different projects, be on the ground in it. And then whenever these business models and these opportunities presented themselves, we could double down on it and we would have the skills required because we've been building in the space for a while. So it's kind of this idea of, I would love to own, think about it, call it a venture studio, call it a lab, but it's essentially a holding company where the goal is to own, at least, let's say 5 businesses generating $10 million in revenue, 3 million in profit, give or take, SaaS-based companies, of which I'm able to bring on young, hot shots, kids that I think have so much hunger and so much hustle, but maybe just don't, they need that lane, right? I want to bring them in. I want to coach them up and teach them up and have them just be killers and put them in charge of these companies and help mentor them that way and give them the resources they need. So essentially that was the vision, and that's kind of what gets me going, at least right now. So started DB8 Labs. And that's exactly what we're doing, is we're essentially using these new technologies. We're in the space building. There's 5 of us full time. And we've been for the past 6 months just exploring the business models, what's here to stay, what's going to go. How can you deploy these technologies in a way that adds value without just kind of falling into that hype cycle? And it's been an amazing experience because we've learned a lot, but it's also really interesting when you want to build something big, we did the $20 million thing. I feel like it's a waste not to aim for the $100 million plus thing. But this whole idea of kind of sitting on the sidelines and finding the opportunity to strike on this, while looking at, like, let's say multiple $10 million businesses is so different than trying to take one company to 100 million. Because it seems so much easier and so much simpler. And of course, we will very much put that to the test. But when you look at a business, and if you're trying to build a $10 million software company or a $10 million, just tech-enabled, whatever you want to call it, an extension, a plugin, whatever it is, that's so reasonable when you have the skills and you understand how to go to market and you can build these things. So it's almost like that's kind of the direction that we're looking at and going in. And it's been kind of just like very smooth. It's been very obvious. The opportunities have presented themselves to us. The clients are loving the work. We're finding the validation that we need, and so far it's been, I'm not saying easy, but it's been simple. The path has kind of been laid, so it's really exciting for us, and I think that a lot of people are going to start going down this model of, hey, look, you know what? Let's become proficient and actually become experts in a given space, and then let's just build what the customers and the people that we are talking to on a daily basis are asking for, rather than let's build something using this technology because it's available and we should build with the tech. It's like, no, you can continue to just focus on solving a problem, and the idea should be that the tech can make that easier, but it's not just about the tech. So that's a very long-winded way of saying that I've started DB8 Labs, where we work on various projects with the goal of creating $10 million companies.
I love it, man. Well, I want to talk to you about, you seem huge on surrounding yourself with the right people, not only from like an inspiration side of things, but obviously you said you had the 10 original true local employees that were there until the end with you. Now you have 5, killers that you work with on a day-to-day basis. Like, what does that selection process look like for you, and how has it changed from 25-year-old Mark to current day Mark?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would work with every single person at True Local in the early days again. So I'll put that out there to start. I think that that's going to be an interesting full circle storyline. But for me in the early days with True Local, actually, this is there's an easy way to answer this. So I wrote the book, True Founder, What Nobody Has the Guts to Teach You About Starting Your First Company. And one of the chapters in there is actually about, should you hire for experience, or should you hire for, hustle or enthusiasm? So the idea of hiring friends versus the idea of hiring for experience. And in that 2015 to 2020 stage, everybody was preaching. Every LinkedIn influencer on the planet was like, oh, hire 2 years out, hire for the role that you need. And A, that never made sense to me from a theoretical standpoint. And B, I've never seen it make sense practically either. You're not going to get to the 2-year mark if you hire someone who's 2 years out. The easiest, you need what you need today. And the easiest way to do that is if you're hiring for experience, that individual is going to want a team. They're going to want resources. They're going to want capital to deploy to achieve their mission. They're going to be more or less spreadsheet individual, executive style, consultant style workers. Now, the unicorns are the ones that do both. And absolutely, if you can find those, but I'm not even going to discuss those types of individuals because that's a lottery. So the reality is what you need today. So for me, in the early days of starting a company, I will always optimize for enthusiasm, reliability, dedication, excitement. I don't care what your skills are. We can teach you the skills. But I do need you to pick up the phone at 11 o'clock if we have a freezer outage and our meat's about to go bad. And it's just the reality of business. And I know there are people out there who preach work-life balance, like plugging their ears, being like, you can't do that. And it's like, all right, keep doing what you're doing. But I truly believe that in the early days of a company, your friends are the people that you want to hire for a couple reasons. They're the ones that, are going to be there for you when you need them the most. And on the flip side, they're the ones that are probably already supporting you. Why not try to bring them and give them an opportunity to help grow the company with you? Now, when we started True Local, like we were 25 and a lot of the people and the friends that I brought on were in their 22, 23. A lot of them didn't have set careers. So this was an opportunity and a risk that they could take. So it's different when you've got somebody in your 30s who has a set career and you're trying to pull them away to come and do something. But for me, I looked at it twofold, where it's like, hey, listen, I need that friend sort of deal where it's like, look, I know I can rely on you. I know that you care. But then I did take on the responsibility of understanding that, these people are working for me when they don't have to. Employees don't have to work for you, and I have to earn that benefit that I'm getting by having my friends work for me. So it's about the personal development. It's about making sure that there's compensation packages that make sense as the company grows. So I'm a huge believer at True Local. It was none of the first 10 employees were all friends, and none of us had any skill sets. Not one of us had actually, you know what? Alicia, so shout out Alicia, who did go to school for HR and worked in HR. she's the only one really who had this like very specific skill set. But when we brought her on, she came on to consumer experience because we didn't have an HR department. There was 5 of us and we didn't deal with that for a while. But the promise was that, listen, as the company grows, if and when we get HR, you're going to be the head of HR. And that's actually what ended up happening. So it's kind of like those type of things. Another individual is Mitch. And actually, I could go down the list. Alan, so my brother-in-law, Alan started off as a box packer for us. He was kind of in between school and jobs and just came on to do box packing. And he ended up literally being our head of expansion. He would go to every single one of the provinces we would expand in and essentially act as the general manager in each one of those places, everything from Alberta, BC, Chicago. He eventually ended up settling in Vancouver, and just once again, no skill sets in the beginning, and now has been this prolific go-to-market expert. You know, you look at literally, I can go down the board across the board, and it's just like everybody. You know, for me, I had no business being a founder CEO, right? I didn't have that skill set, but I got put in that environment, and I very quickly had to shed my university. I like to party. I care about being liked by people. That's what matters the most. I'm going to optimize for all of that, and I had to optimize for, okay, I've got to essentially be the best version of myself each and every single day to mentally solve the problems that we're dealing with. So I have to change my environment and my lifestyle to make that happen. So, you know, I'm a huge believer, early stage, hire your friends, you know, work at the challenges that come with it. I'm not saying it's easy. You're going to have the respect issues. You're going to have the, are you a friend or are you a boss? You're going to have all of that. But these are all things that you can challenge and deal with head on, and it's going to make you a better leader. But if you can overcome those challenges, I think they pay a much better dividend than the challenge of hiring somebody who you've been told you should hire, and they come in with an ego and they don't do the work you need them to do, and then you have to fire them, and you've wasted 3 months and you have to hire somebody else again. It's just kind of pick and choose your challenge.
So you've got this lab now. You're working on 5 different companies. We're really excited about one of the new companies that you're working with. As it's, you know, this is a podcast all about sales and marketing for real estate. And one of the companies is right in that space. Tell us a bit about what you're working on right now that our listeners, like, I'm super excited about it for our listeners. I've been telling people about it. I used to work for a coaching company that I think does a lot of the work that we used to teach, and takes it off their hands. So tell us about what all of our listeners are going to be really excited about that you're working on right now.
Yeah, for sure. So our first product is realestatecontent.ai. And we went through the ups and downs of settling on this. And I'm happy to go through that process because I think if there's any founders, it'll be interesting. Once again, when you can work on anything, how did you zero in on this? But essentially, realestatecontent.ai is making AI easy and accessible for real estate agents, because I know it's intimidating. I think that real estate traditionally, and I think we can all just be honest here, have always been a little bit behind when it comes to adopting new technologies and adopting best practices when it comes to marketing in general. And the idea here is that there are 2 different types of agents. There are the agents when it comes to social media and content who they don't post that often. It's either they don't have the time or the skill set, but they know it's important. So they're like the 1 to 3s on a scale of 10 when it comes to social media and content. Then you've got the other side of it, where you've got sort of the other agents who are seeing the benefits. They are investing in it. And as you know, if you are doing social media, it is an investment, whether it be time or resources. They're killing it on social media, and they also see the value in it. Now, they're the 5+. They're like in the 7 to 10 range. This tool is designed to make it so that anybody out the gate can automatically get to a 5. So this tool is for those agents that know they should be doing social media, but either don't have the time or the skill set. They can use realestatecontent.ai and automatically become a 5. It essentially will do all of your copywriting for you for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, which, by the way, I would love to talk about LinkedIn for real estate after this, but it'll do all of that. And also it does your blogs. And just as an example of where I think there's so much opportunity here for agents is that we know that the blogging component of it is actually one of the most important parts, but almost every agent is kind of like, okay, cool, blogs. So when we just use it as an example, so it's like it'll do a Instagram caption for you every single day. It'll also do a blog for you every single day. And everyone's like, oh, the Instagram caption, super exciting. And it's this awesome opportunity for the agents that do realize that, hey, listen, we realize if you upload a blog every single day and it's properly SEO optimized and you're doing things that aren't just about buy now, buy now, buy now. Instead, let's say you're in Kitchener and you're now offering a guide every single day, the top cafes in Kitchener, the top dog walking trails in Kitchener, the top events going on in February in Kitchener, and you're posting one of those every single day, you are going to very quickly become a thought leader in your industry, in your market. So long story short, realestatecontent.ai pretty much is here to put your social media caption writing on autopilot. The idea is that you can then go in, upload whatever videos or photos you want. It'll also generate images for you, but as we all know, it's probably better off that you just upload your own, because that's where the captions really start to kind of shine. And yeah, we launched it on December 6th, and the feedback's been great so far. And once again, the idea is that we really want to be able to cover the services from the 1 all the way through to 10 on the scale of social media. But right now we know who needs this the most, and we're building the tools for the ones that need to get from 1 to 5, like tomorrow.
I mean, it's such an amazing way to bridge the gap, because we have so many conversations. We do so many business planning sessions with agents, right? And you always hear like, okay, let's talk a little bit about, what are you currently doing for marketing? And I think the most popular answer is, I want to create more content. It's like, no, that's not the question that I asked. I asked, what are you currently doing for marketing? And you answered, I should be doing content. And then it's like, okay, so what are we going to do to ensure that you're held accountable to do that, if that's, the path that you want to go down? And there's never an answer on how I'm going to do this easily. And so for you to be able to put together a platform that, most importantly, someone doesn't have to be tech savvy to use, like, it's so simple to use. And I think that's the one thing, like, when people hear AI, they're like, ugh, it sounds like a whole new thing I'm going to have to learn. It sounds crazy. It sounds complicated. The word AI, it's just a word. What Marc has, like, the tool is amazing. It's like one of the easiest things that you can do to be able to actually create the content, but also be able to post it. And I think that's the biggest challenge. There's way too many agents with a stockpile of stuff that they should be posting, or videos that they have that they didn't get clipped down, or whatever it happens to be, and they just neglect actually uploading it. So I love the fact that you guys have a tool that bridges the gap to be able to get people to follow through with what they say they want to do.
Yeah, well, Emma, you were actually a huge part of that. As you know, I'm a talker, right? So I love to talk, and we've been down the block, and I always say that the first-time founder, all you do is focus on product. As a second-time founder, you realize that you need to be out there talking to people and really get the feedback from them. So in the early days, we absolutely had built a tool that did half the job. And it was actually talking to you where you're like, listen, the thing that we never would have thought of, because I always candidly say I'm not a real estate agent, right? So, we do content a different way. We're marketing people, we're AI people. And this sort of full-fledged solution of, hey, it's got to be way easier to use, just from a perspective of, like, there are a lot of AI tools out there, but none of them are specifically tailored, or at least not as many of them are specifically tailored for agents that speak the language of agents and understand that, once again, at the end of the day, a lot of them aren't spending all of their time researching new AI tools. It's got to be easy, but then also making it so, like, they can't have to leave that platform to make the post. Right. So that was actually super helpful. And that was actually one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we got that made it into the product. So it's been awesome. And like I said, we launched it, 3 weeks ago, and the feedback's been amazing. And we're launching new features all the time based on this feedback. So it's been good. The content calendar was a huge part that came from talking to people as well. We initially had it where it would just generate all of your social media captions for you. And once again, the thing to understand here is that, like, this isn't like ChatGPT in the perspective that it's very generic and it's like speaking from an expert opinion in any industry. We've trained this model to focus from the lens of a real estate agent. So you're going to get answers that are a little bit more specific to real estate. And we thought that was enough. We're like, this is going to give you better answers, and you can go in and create content from each thing. But no, what we got to do is make it even easier. So that's where the content calendar came in. So now the content calendar, you just choose a theme, choose how many days you want to post, choose which platforms you want to post on, and boom, you've got your first draft of all the posts Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and blogs for each of those days. Go in, edit it, and you're off to the races. So it's been good. And I think the product is going to continue to develop as we get more customers and as we talk to them more. I think every week we've got a major upgrade coming down the pipe. That has been really beneficial, and it's been great. We're obviously going to be speaking at conferences, and we're doing a lot of courses now too. So we're currently in the process right now. So I'm thinking probably by mid-February we'll have our first full free training for all of our clients, where it'll walk them through not just how to use our tool, but other tools that complement it in the space that we think are kind of like handpicked for agents that work really well. And then once again, like, it's just understanding the reality of social media content. Like, if you want to be at the highest end of the game, I hear people talk about it all the time. You got to post every day. You got to post every day. Yeah, I love hearing that, but I just want to make it super clear that if you want to be in the top tier, like, we're talking 3 posts a day. Like, when you want to compete against the top tier people, these people have teams. These people have their content planned out for a month minimum, and they're posting multiple times per day across all of their platforms. So you don't have to do that. And I don't think you should start off with that, but you understand that that's where the gold standard is. And then you look at the other scale of the other end of the spectrum, where it's, I post once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. So you just want to find that middle ground. It's like, look, if you want to take social media seriously and content seriously, post once a day. And people always say, okay, well, you got to post on all your platforms. I do agree. But if you can't do that because you don't have the time or the skill or the resources, choose the platform that fits best for you. If you like being on camera, do the visual platforms, do your TikToks, do your YouTubes, your YouTube shorts, do your Instagrams, do your reels, do all that. But maybe you don't like being on camera. Well, go over to Twitter, go over to LinkedIn, and do your written stuff. Find what works for you and then start scaling up from there. That's really sort of this idea. And that's, of course, what this product is here to help people do, is like, wherever you are on that level, this will help you get started. And the thing that I do find that's really interesting, and I hope more agents are starting to kind of wake up to this, but it's like, I always look at it that if you just buy your leads, and I know this is the way to do it, but at the end of the day, you're kind of an employee. It's like working at a company that provides you with your leads and you go hopefully sell them. What are you doing? I talk to most agents who they're like, well, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a founder, I'm a business owner, I'm doing this. It's like, okay, I believe that. I really do. But what are you doing to stand out? Like, what are you doing to stand out from every other person who's doing the same thing? Because if you're doing nothing to stand out, then you're just an employee. You're another generic commodity individual in this giant pool of people that are doing it. How are you going to stand out? And every other industry understands that personal brand is very important. And the best way to do that is social media. Every other industry, there's not one industry that doesn't understand the importance of social media and content. Yet it seems like agents are very resistant to investing a proportionate amount of time in something that is clearly a very, very important thing. So I think that in 2024, more and more agents are going to realize that this isn't like a cute hobby for your kids. It's not like, oh, I'm on social media, haha. This is actually arguably probably the most important part of your business if you want to stand out. And I think we're going to start to see more people treating it that way. And it'll make it so that the time that you have to dedicate to do it well isn't as daunting. It's not like, oh my God, I got to schedule 5 hours this week to do this. It's more like, okay, this is like part of my business. This is part of my routine. Once again, realestatecontent.ai is here to try to bring that down quite a bit from a time commitment. But just in general, seeing real estate take content and social media much more seriously, understanding that there are levels to this. And wherever you want to start is great, but understand that you should be trying to creep up to the point where you're starting to see this success. So that's kind of why we got into this.
So do you think that it's agents haven't caught on to the importance of it, or agents are too lazy to have done the work required? Because I will say, I do think there's a lot of people having had conversations where like, oh, I know it's important. Like, I can see why it's important, but it's like, it's so much work and it takes forever and I don't have good ideas and nobody wants to hear from me or whatever happens to be. And it's like, I don't have time to sit down and like make all these videos and do all this stuff and plan it all out. So is it like people don't see the importance, or is it that people are like, this is too much work without having a guaranteed outcome?
Well, it's certainly the work. Like, it's definitely, this is a lot of work, but it also scares me. And the reality is, and, I'm probably, some people are going to feel personally attacked here, but the people who understand how important it is truly and choose not to do it, like, you're just going to fail at everything in life. Like you know the answer. You know what you need to be successful. You're saying, you know it. I have to do this. And you're choosing not to. That's not why is it not working? Like, why am I not successful? You know why, and you're choosing not to. You can make a change and you're not doing it. So I think I absolutely think a lot of people fall in that bucket. I know it's important. I know it's the biggest thing, but there is an asterisk there too. And a little thing that got snuck in, which is without a guaranteed result. And I think that a lot of people can cop out when they add that part at the end, without a guaranteed result. It is a guaranteed result. There absolutely is. Like, you having a presence on social media, which can be tracked in a million different metrics. It could be your follower count. It could be your engagement time. It could be leads collected. It could be traffic driven to your website all through your social media. There are ways to do this. And at the end of the day, it's all a numbers game. It's all an impressions game. It's all how many people are seeing you, which will make it more likely that whenever they do want to transact, they're going to reach out to you. So people need to, I would first start by anyone who's like without a guaranteed result, I would just always challenge that. Like, there is a guaranteed result. If you put more time and effort into this, your social media will grow. You will get more people looking at you. And sure, it might in the first short period of time not directly translate to dollars in the bank, but because once again, it's not like this post got me this sale. But over time, if you were to take all of the impressions you got and start dividing it by how many transactions you were able to do over a long period of time, it's absolutely going to be one of the biggest drivers in what's going on, especially, and I'm happy to dive in on this on another podcast because I'm sure we won't have the time, but when we talk about driving traffic to a website or to a lead capture, once again, that's just a numbers game. You just got a giant bucket and you're taking all these eyeballs and you're trying to corral them, and you're trying to spill that bucket onto your filter, which is your website or your lead capture, and you're trying to sift through the ones that are going to stay. And depending on how fine that sifter is, you'll catch more people. And once again, when I say how fine it is, it's what's your conversion rate optimization? Do you have a good lead capture? Do you have a good reason for people to stay on your website? When they land on your site, are they hanging around? Are they spending time? Or are they bouncing the second they land on any of your pages? So all of this stuff goes into it. And I could spend so much time going down that rabbit hole. But just if there's one main takeaway, it's like this is not like a pie in the sky woo-woo type thing that just because you don't have the individual skill set to tie a social media post down to a sale does not mean that it is not having one of the biggest impacts on your personal brand, which is going to have the biggest impact on your ability to transact properties. So I would say that that's kind of the thing, is just understand that it's like working out. It's actually a great analogy. It's like working out. You don't feel like you've gotten fitter after one run. You don't feel like you got fitter after one time going to the gym. It's the worst thing ever, actually. You go to the gym and then you go look in the mirror. Depending on the type of workout, say you're overweight, you probably look like shit. You're like, crap. Like I'm not jacked after this one workout. But what's going to happen over 3 months of doing it? You start to realize that, oh my God, this is working. But was it the last workout that made you now jacked? No, it was the one that you did a month ago. It was that one that cascaded into this. And when you look at social media, I think it's very much like that. It's like this positive reinforcement. Similar to working out, after about 2 weeks of being completely miserable and hating your life and deciding that you never want to do it again, you get into week 3 where you notice a small, tiny improvement, a 5% improvement. And now it's like a drug. Now you're like, oh my God, I'm getting better. It's like social media. You're going to do, and the thing with social media, it's actually probably a longer period of time, but you're going to go a month without any results. But then on that, 1 month and 1 day, one post gets a disproportionate amount of comments and likes. And now you're like, oh my God, it's working. Was it that one post? Probably not. It was probably the month prior of getting the algorithm to understand what type of person you are, you iterating and testing the different types of content, posting consistently, and now you've gotten to this point. So, as you can tell, I think there's so much opportunity for social media and content with real estate, and I think it's very underserved right now. And that leads into LinkedIn too, where I think people need to be spending more time on LinkedIn in real estate.
Oh, I think you made a really good point there about also tracking. And I think this is where people tend to go wrong, is they're inconsistent and they have no like they don't look back, right? So when they're posting, it's not like if they have one post that pops off, they're like, okay, that was great. But they don't look on a weekly basis and say, okay, you know what? Last week I had X number of views. Like, we'll take this podcast as an example. Ryan, when we started, we're like, okay, how are we going to get anybody to listen to this podcast? We're like, well, it's going to be a difficult thing to do. It's like a YouTube channel. Nobody listens to anything or watches anything at the beginning of YouTube until you're consistent with it. But every single week we have a meeting and we go, okay, how many hours of view time did we get? And as long as we have more hours of viewership than we had on the previous week, it's that little piece of motivation that helps us to want to continue, because we're like, holy shit, last week somebody somewhere watched us for an entire day when we weren't doing this, right? And so it's like that little piece of motivation of tracking to continue to move forward. And I think agents don't often do that. They're just like, I'm kind of willy-nilly doing it. I'm not really seeing results, but there is no, 15-minute reflection point that they take on a weekly basis to be like, oh, I actually am moving forward with this a little bit. I should continue.
We're hoping to change that with very simple but very informative analytics on realestatecontent.ai, because I think that as a founder or a business operator, you know that you're going to be using Google Analytics or any of the built-in analytics platforms on Facebook or anything like that. But as an agent, you're not using that stuff. And we want to give that information as easily as possible to people, because you will see very quickly, just by posting more consistently, you're going to get an increase in views, social media site visits, traffic, all of that. So that's something we're looking to help with too. That was one of the biggest pieces of feedback from the people that are successful doing it. Nobody in the 1 to 3 range actually asked for this because they didn't know about it. However, we know about it, and the people that are hyper successful in it swear by it. And it was like, oh my God, this is a gap that we have to fill. So on realestatecontent.ai, you'll be able to do all of your posts, but also see how that is affecting your profiles across these different platforms as well. So I'm with you 100%. Tracking it is so important. You know what? Like, once again, I always say I'm not a real estate agent, and at the end of the day, I'm a founder who came into the space. But I think that it's been really awesome doing a lot of these talks and talking from the perspective of a founder and trying to be like, listen, like I said before, all of these individuals who are in the real estate game are entrepreneurs, but I think there are a lot of things that these individuals can take from the startup world and start applying it to their business rather than just looking at what every other agent is doing. The agents that are hyper successful are the most entrepreneurial. And I find the ones that struggle the most are the ones that just have this very cookie cutter, this is how to do it, this is how to be successful, So that's how I'm personally putting myself into this game, is I'm going to be speaking from that perspective. But yeah, so it's been...
I agree with you. I think real estate is an interesting industry in that people just tend to stay in the silo of real estate. They tend not to go like too far outside of the bubble. They just look at what everybody else is doing within the industry. And you're right. The people that have the most success, and people like a lot of people that we have on this podcast, tremendous businesses. And the one theme that we get across every single person that comes on this podcast has been successful is like, I don't look at what the fuck is happening in our industry at all. I look at what other people are doing from other industries, draw inspiration, and I'm the person that's going to bring that back into the real estate industry and push through and try and kind of like expand the barriers. And then all of a sudden, like, that's the new benchmark for real estate. And now we got to continue to keep pushing those boundaries and pushing those boundaries. But yeah, I agree with you. I think there's way too many people that just they're playing it too safe, and they're just looking at what everybody else is doing within their own internal industry.
Yeah, so I've got my personal mission here. I want to so on the LinkedIn train, I'm gonna find an agent to work with, and we're gonna blow them up on LinkedIn using realestatecontent.ai, because it's a theory. I haven't proven it out yet. But the beautiful thing about running this type of business is we get a lot of data with a lot of case studies that we can show to people to say, hey, look. So I'm personally going to try to find an agent to work with to say, hey, look, let's get you on realestatecontent.ai, and we're gonna focus on LinkedIn. Because here's my thesis. Like, at the end of the day, it's the idea of show up where your customers are. And every agent right now is talking about, the most old school Facebook, followed by Instagram, followed by TikTok being, oh, we got to be there. And I completely believe that. I do not subscribe to the people who are like, oh, it's just my kids on TikTok, blah, blah, blah. I 100% think everybody should be there. But at the same time, I think there is an argument to be made. You need to be there. That's the biggest platform. But it's truly, where are your buyers? Like, I don't think you go on TikTok to find buyers. You go on TikTok to build your personal brand and build credibility. So when people look you up, you have a better chance of coming across as somebody you want to work with. But if we're talking about these social media pools, the however many millions of users on TikTok and the however many millions of users on Instagram, which are the most popular platforms right now, there's a lot of users. And I would say that the percentage of buyers and sellers are actually quite small on those platforms. Whereas LinkedIn, to me, has a much smaller audience, but that entire audience are homeowners for the most part, or people who can afford to buy and sell real estate. And every agent I've talked to is like, I'm not on LinkedIn. I'm here and there. And I'm like, okay, so and this is like, I and we do searches, right? Of course, because we do LinkedIn searches to find real estate agents, and it's like, this is completely untapped. And I'm like, so if you believe in, let's say you have a content strategy for 2024, a real content strategy for an agent is going to be to post content as frequently as possible that is not around buying or selling a home. Do not buy just listed or just posted. Do not do headshots. Do value-added content in your niche. If you are an upsizer or if you're a downsizer, post consistent content on how you need to declutter your home, on things to look out for, all this type of stuff, like value-added content. And that's the way that you should be doing social media strategy, really. And you can do it video or written. Take that same concept and bring it over to LinkedIn, where you start to become an authority in your local market and post value-added content on LinkedIn. And every once in a while, mention that you're in real estate and you can help people transact. Well, you're literally speaking to, like, LinkedIn is just business professionals. So I don't know. I think there's something there. We're gonna test it and get some data points on it. But I think that you will be able to get leads and transactions faster for the same amount of effort put on LinkedIn than you will on other platforms. And that's what I want to test and see.
So I will back this up. At the beginning of my career, I found this strategy. It's funny because I made a video for a friend of mine. I uploaded it on YouTube just to show him how I did the strategy. I completely forgot about it. I went back. I think there was like 3,500 views on this video of how to do this strategy. And I've taught it since. But LinkedIn, I need to put like an asterisk or like a bit of a disclaimer here. They're like cracking down on automation tools. So if you use automation tools on LinkedIn, you can have your account banned. So what I'm telling you guys is just for information purposes only. Do what you want with it. But one of the strategies that I used at the beginning of my career, and I got so many leads out of this. You know, remember when you used to get notifications? I think if you have the premium LinkedIn account, you still get them, but it's like you could see who viewed your profile. You'd always get a notification, right? So what I would do is make a post on LinkedIn, right? And then there's a free Chrome extension called Link Clump. And what you can do is you can highlight a bunch of different profiles and it'll open up tabs for each of those links. So I would do like 100, I would open 100 people's profile at once, but I would make a post about, let's say, for example, it'd be like how doctors could buy a property in Toronto. And then I'd open up a bunch of doctors' profiles and they'd be like, Emma Pace looked at your profile. And they're like, you know, it's just human nature. You're like, who the hell is this and why are they looking at my profile? So I'm going to go check them out. And it would be like, I'd just make a post specific to whatever that industry is. And then I would get a ton of messages, right? So using little strategies like that back and forth, obviously be careful with the automation thing. I think you can open like 100 profiles a day before you get banned or something like that. But I was opening like 1,000 profiles a day, and every one of those people was getting notified that I had looked at their profile. And just, you know, as a result of human nature being curious as to like why somebody's creeping on your profile, they're always, you know, driving back to your page. So that was a great strategy. And like, it's so easy to find qualified people on LinkedIn because, like you said, you can just search people who are actively working at these companies in this particular role, and you know how much money they're making.
Yeah, the main takeaway on LinkedIn is it just has the best search features. You know, when you look at something like TikTok or Instagram, you can search accounts, profiles, tags, but on LinkedIn, you know, the level in which you can drill down on the filters, you can absolutely do it based on industry, job type, profession, a company, all these different things. And to your point, like that I haven't done that one before or heard of that. And that is a beautiful strategy. Like it's so good. And LinkedIn gives you the tools to do that. So yeah, I think people are sleeping on it. I think that also, to your point on the automation side. So yeah, we were actually just talking to this individual who has a lot of experience posting on these social platforms, and it is happening. So what's happening is essentially these automation tools are, there's a bunch. There's so many different, like you look at the big ones like Hootsuite and whatnot. And they're absolutely being downplayed for sure. So we give guides on realestatecontent.ai to say, hey, listen, if you're maximizing for time, automate your posts, and we give you the ability to do that. If you're maximizing for results, you're going to be better off copying these into a doc and then just copying them onto LinkedIn. So once again, this kind of depends what people are focusing on. But I think once again, LinkedIn, it's going to be the same thing. Like, it's the holy grail. I think in 2024, it's definitely going to be the holy grail for real estate. People have, by the way, this isn't new. Like LinkedIn's already blown up. Like LinkedIn is the place for professionals. It's just not yet the place for real estate professionals. So it's not like we're speaking from this like area of, oh my God, like what's this forecast going to look like in this prediction? It's just take the best practices from people who have been killing it on LinkedIn. And now as an agent, go ahead and do some of those, and you'll probably find some success.
Amazing. So we're super excited about the AI tool. As I said, I think it is going to do a lot of the things that agents know they should be doing that they haven't been doing. So super excited about that. You've had a great journey of not even really knowing you were an entrepreneur to becoming an entrepreneur and a startup CEO and founder, and obviously a great marketer with TrueLocal. So we ask every guest this question, but what is one or two books, courses, or trainings that you would recommend to any business person that can increase their capabilities as a salesperson, as a marketer, or as a entrepreneur? Because I truly believe that all realtors have to be entrepreneurs, as you said, to be very successful in the business. So do you have a recommendation for our listeners, something that changed your outlook or helped you be so successful on your journey?
You can plug your own book too.
I'm going to be super biased, but I'm being biased, but also it just answers your question perfectly. Like True Founder, what nobody has the guts to teach you about starting your first company is literally just about that. It's about kind of, stripping away all the bullshit of what people tell you should be doing and giving you not only just like 16 chapters of like tangible tips on how to grow a business, but also like what we did at TrueLocal and that story. So even if I didn't write the book, I'd probably recommend it. So there's that one. And then in terms of another book that I personally liked a lot, because here's the thing, I find that when it comes to finding a book about individual strategies and what to do, a lot of them don't stand the test of time. I think like if you look at the best books that give you exactly how to do things, you've got Alex Hormozi's books, and he's an outlier, right, when it comes to writing a book. So to me, I always say find your tips and tricks. You can use the internet to find tips and tricks specific to your industry. I love books for the mindset they put me in, right? Books help you think. And the book that helped me through the hardest times at TrueLocal, and I reread it all the time, is The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. It's not specific to real estate. It's also not specific to marketing, but it is specific to growing a business and the things that go into it. And they obviously massive company they're doing with IPOs, but just seeing how you think you're having an existential crisis because you lost some paperwork or something happened with a deal. Read this book and you will realize that there are much bigger problems, and the stoicism required to get through them is what will help you just be successful as a business owner. So that's kind of the one that, I'm a huge fan of. I'm just going through right now, just trying to see if there's another one I can put up that's a little bit more tangible. But another favorite book of mine is Creativity Inc. So the Pixar story. Once again, just absolute team of rock star. I didn't realize how state-of-the-art, cutting edge Pixar was. Super inspiring. They do have a lot of applicable systems and process on how to manage a team and how to kind of grow in that way. And then I'm just trying to look here for one that's like My Morning Routine. So I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of that one, but it's a great book. It just gives an example of how there's no one right or wrong morning routine. It's all of these different people who have all these different morning routines. It just shows that having a routine in general helps. And that would help me and my team a lot, because I'm like that annoying parent who always preaches like, I'm up super early at 5:30, and my team's like, shut up, like we're done with it. We do a book club. We did a book club at True Local, so I slotted that one in there as like it's not just me saying it. There's value to this, so that was a good one. And I know I'm going on a tangent here, but The Obstacle is the Way, amazing book. Just the idea of turning all of the issues that you're dealing with from these crisis, do or die situations into, every single thing could be turned into an opportunity. There's always a way that something bad that happened could be turned into a good. Yep. So that helped a lot. But yeah, you can see a theme here. I like the mindset books.
I was gonna say I'm seeing a theme for sure, and that actually brings me to my last question, because I know we've taken up so much of your time, and you're very generous to have done this with us today. So thank you. But it kind of brings me back to something that we were talking about before when you said about hiring. You were like, nobody had any skill sets. We were just kind of hungry, motivated. We're a hungry, motivated, select few. What was your mentorship or coaching for you personally to become the founder and the leader within that True Local, community? Ultimately is what you guys were building there. Like, how did you become the best founder you possibly could be? Who kind of guided that?
So I always come out and say, like, I never actually had a mentor. And I always got to be explicit when I say that, though. It's because I think my definition of mentor is different than most. I had so many incredibly smart, generous people share their time and knowledge and resources with me and guide me along the way. More than I could count and more than I could thank in like an hour-long podcast. So I had a lot of help. But even though they were incredibly successful, I never looked at them as mentors. Usually because I couldn't see myself being that person in a short-ish period of time, 5 to 10 years. And for me, a mentor is somebody that I also see myself in. So it's not just someone that's helped me along the way. A mentor is somebody I want to kind of model my life after. And, whether it just be, these are amazing individuals. It's just that like I was cut from a different cloth, and I actually don't know too many of the people the people that came from the background that I came in from were more friends than mentors. And the people who were like, just downloading knowledge to me and things like that just so happened to kind of come from the silver spoon life a little bit more so, or they just, had different things or whatever. So I never really had that mentorship, but I had a lot of guidance and information. And that's why when I do talks and whatnot, I always say, I'm like, I want to just try to download to people as much information as I can, because if anything just helps you get to that one next step. So yeah, talking to a ton of people, as many as possible. Also, circling back to LinkedIn, anytime we ran into a new problem, look, founders are very open to helping. So if you reach out to other founders as a founder and just be a damn human. Like, don't send them the scripted bullshit LinkedIn message that looks the same. Just be a human, reach out, ask for like, hey, yo, can I just pick your brain on this? Like, straight up say yo. I love saying yo, because as soon as you say yo, people are like, hey, it's not a bot, and it's just, like this is a human behind it. So just like, yo, what's up? I just wanted to bug you for this. So there's that. And then really, really what it was, to be honest, at the end of the day, in addition to that help, was like I said before, like I think an outlook I have on life that I didn't choose it. I'm happy that I do think this way, is that you're molded by your environment. So you're the type of individual who's going to cripple and crumble under the pressure of your environment, positive or negative, or you're the person who will push back on it and become who you need to do. You will do the things that are required and become who you need to become to survive your environment. And I think that's kind of what made me who I was during True Local. I didn't have a choice. Like, I was all in on it. Like, if True Local failed, not only was I going to go bankrupt, literally, my friends who gave up careers and way better opportunities were going to be screwed as well. So it was literally do or die. And I was going to die to make sure that True Local was going to be successful. So in scenarios where you wake up in year 3 and everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, and you literally wake up and feel like throwing up in the morning, what am I going to do? Like, have a pity party for myself? I tell people this all the time, and I get it, like burnout and all this, and I've experienced it. Like, I've been through these situations, but what are you going to do? There's nobody, you can't tap out. You don't have a choice. You have to push through it. You're having a mental breakdown. Okay. You might want to clean yourself up as fast as possible, because spending the rest of the day in a pity party is not going to fix the problem. In fact, it's just going to make it worse. So you don't have a choice. And I don't recommend putting yourself in these situations, and it sucks and it's a nightmare. And if you could avoid it, do it. But I just think that that's what made True Local successful. We jumped into the arena of do or die, and we treated it that way. And every time there was a new challenge that we had never heard of before in our life, it was, okay, we got to figure this out, and we'll do whatever we got to do to figure it out. So I think that's kind of the mentality that kind of formed me during those True Local years. And once again, I think the main thing is that you don't know it at the time. You don't know that you're thinking this way at the time. You're just doing. It's after it's done, you can look back and be like, oh, that's why this happened.
Yeah, but putting yourself in the situation where you're pushing through those challenges, that is what it takes to grow a company. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, I just wish $10 million would just show up into my bank account, right? But I don't want to do the work, and I don't want to push to make that happen. But it's like, is that really that fulfilling? Because you look back now, when we've had a whole conversation about, the running, the race car driving, building the companies, you know what I mean? All of these things. And you're like, okay, I actually love the journey, and looking back on that, it's like, that's the fulfillment. That's like the best part of it. It's like, yeah, it fucking sucks to go through like trials and tribulations in business, but it's like, once you figure it out, you're like, okay, let's go figure out the next problem. Like, that is business. And if you are unwilling to be able to go and solve the problems to move on to the next thing, your business isn't going to grow. It just is what it is. That's just a fact.
Well, I think like another big part on that is the idea that like you have to earn it if you want to enjoy it. And what I mean by that is that, look, like we live in a world right now where if you've got money, you don't get to talk about it. You don't get to have nice things. You can't say that you're in it for the money because you get shunned and you get canceled. And that will plague any person who got it easily. If it was handed to you, you will never have the confidence and never be able to like really just live and breathe in your success because it was given to you. Now, there's no fun in that. Now, when you earned it and you actually worked for it and you bled for it and you cried for it, and every single thing that you have in your life was earned, you get to enjoy it and you get to talk about it, and people can say whatever they want to say and you'll never care because you earned it. And I think that going through those 5 years, like I talk about it like we actually went to war, and I'm not trying to over dramatize it. It's just that's what it felt like, but it wouldn't feel the way it feels now if we didn't do it that way. Like if we just won the lottery or we just launched it and it was like, okay, you just won in year one. Great. That's awesome. And I honestly wish that upon a lot of people. I also like being able to stand here confidently. I'll stand on stage and be like I'm financially motivated because like I earned the things that I had. Like I had holes in my shoes, and now I can come up there and say I have a whole closet full of shoes or whatever, and I don't have to sit here and be like embarrassed about it or feel like I'm being a certain type of way because it was earned. And I feel like that's kind of like that's really the value that comes from going through hardships. It's never the dollar sign in the bank. The dollar sign is doesn't matter. It just allows you to do the things that you want to do. So for me, I want to be who I want to be, and talking about the successes is something that matters to me. And you wouldn't be able to do that in the same way if you didn't earn it and struggle through it and put yourself in situations where you had a chance to fail, and rose up and not only impressed everybody around you, but yourself at the end of the day, and that's, I think that's where that sort of sense of fulfillment and purpose can come from.
Amazing. Marc, this has been such a pleasure. We're going to have you back. We keep saying this, but we've had so many. Yeah, we've had so many great guests, but everything you said today has taken it to the next level. Thank you so much for your time. I think there's so many nuggets in here that our listeners can take. And really, I truly believe realestatecontent.ai is going to be such a great tool. And I think it's such a needed tool in the industry, because there's a lot of things out there that have taught agents they should be doing this. But as you said, they still don't do it. And they know they should be doing it. So having a tool that's going to help them better themselves and better their business and get them to do the basic things they should be doing, I think it's welcomed, and needed. So A, thank you for being here. B, we're going to have you back. And
if somebody wants to find you, Marc, and if they wanted to apply to do that LinkedIn thing with you, how are you going to go about selecting someone? If one of our audience members wants to be a part of that, or raise their hand to be a part of that? How do they go about doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like obviously, you can just send me a message directly, add me on LinkedIn. If you want, I've got my website, marclafleur.com. You can send me off an email from there. Also, just easiest thing too, if you go to realestatecontent.ai, just fire us a message and say, oh, I heard Mark's looking for someone to work with LinkedIn. Look, for us, it's just someone who is consistency, dedication, reliability. It's like, we'll put the work in to help you get to where you need to go. You just got to be willing to do, like put an effort into it, help us. We will. The whole idea is that right now, realestatecontent.ai does really good LinkedIn posts. But our hope is that as we actually go and do this with somebody, we're going to find the other tools and features that we need to build out that will make it even better. So not only will you get firsthand use of that, you'll also be growing your LinkedIn profile as well. So we need someone that's like down to do it with us. Like that's kind of the idea. So
guys, my recommendation is if you want to be the LinkedIn case study, probably leverage LinkedIn.
Yep.
All right, Mark, thank you so much. This was amazing. Guys, if you want to hear more from us, make sure click like and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're here on YouTube. Same thing on Spotify. And we will see you at the next one. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mark.